And we're just going to wait a couple of minutes to let people trickle in and make sure that everyone can hear as much as they possibly can from Alex in the short time that we have together this morning. But again, as you're entering the room, please feel free to share in the chat function where you are calling from. And if you have a favorite bird, feel free to share it with us. Myself, Kiana, and Alex are all based right now in Atlanta, Georgia. And I would have to say that my favorite bird overall is a blue jay. But in this season, I'm really loving the brown-headed nuthatches. It looks like we've got someone, Molly is joining from Columbus, Ohio. She goes to OSU. Green heron fan. We love green herons, even down here in Georgia. We're excited to see that. Robin is joining from Greenville, South Carolina. And favorite bird is hummingbird. Hummingbirds are absolutely great choices. Sarada, it looks like, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, also loves hummingbirds. We've got a lot of hummingbird fans. You love to see that. Hummingbirds are such important birds to have wherever they're found. They're wonderful pollinators. Robin says her son's favorite is the bald eagle. Great, our national bird. Great choice, great choice. We got those all over Georgia and North America. Luis said from Atlanta, and the favorite bird he shares with me, the blue jay, or brown-headed nuthatch, sorry, brown-headed nuthatch. Awesome, very, very cool. Leah, hi Leah, favorite bird here in Atlanta, all the corvids. You cannot go wrong with your corvids, your blue jays, your crows, ravens even. Very, very cool. Hello, Juliana, second grade teacher from College Park in Atlanta. We are so glad you're here. All right. Oh, screech owl. That's a great choice. That's an awesome choice. Alrighty, so in order to make sure we can get as much information in as we possibly can and to hear from Alex today, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so you can see us full-faced. My name is Karina Newsom, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Georgia Audubon. And I'm really excited to be coordinating this program with Kiana Leverett, who is the Community Outreach Coordinator here at Georgia Audubon, where we have the opportunity to share biologists that are actually all from Georgia who are doing work with wildlife and natural resources and conservation in a variety of different capacities, and are wonderful experts in their field and are dynamic educators. So we're excited to share them with you. And to kick off this series, we have Alex Troutman, who is here with us. And Alex Troutman is a wildlife biologist who has several years of experience working in the field, and he's traveled the globe working with threatened and endangered wildlife, ranging from sea turtles to butterflies to bats to birds. And he recently graduated with his Master of Science degree in biology from Georgia Southern University, where he was studying the dynamics of bird and insect species that live in tidal wetland environments. Alex loves to share wildlife facts and photos on social media, where you can find him at Nature Owl, and I'll put his information in the chat so you can learn more about him. And in his free time, he enjoys using his passion for nature to encourage youth to explore and enjoy the outdoors. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Alex to share about his career with all of us. Thank you so much, Alex.
Hey y'all, Corinne, thank you for that introduction. As she said, I'm a wildlife biologist, science communicator, and environmental educator. So today we'll be talking about me and my role as a wildlife biologist. So please enjoy this. I'll be sharing a lot of pictures and some of my passions. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll get started. Or maybe we'll get started. All right, so before we get started, what is a wildlife biologist? That's an individual who studies animals, their behaviors, and how they interact with their habitat. So this right here, this is a tailless fruit bat from Borneo. I had to go work over there for about 2 months, around 3 years ago. And the cool thing about Borneo is the island of Borneo is actually occupied by 3 different countries. You have Malaysia, then you have Indonesia, and you have Brunei. I was in the Malaysian part in Sabah. I was researching bats in a national park there, the Crocker Range National Park. So yeah, we'll continue on. So a little bit about me. I'm from Alsale, Georgia. It's a smaller, big-ish city outside of Atlanta. Pretty much, it used to be a real forested area before the population grew, and now it's part of Metro Atlanta, and we have a big city feel while still having somewhat suburbia. And I graduated from Georgia Southern University. I'm a double eagle, so I graduated in December of 2014, and then I just recently graduated last year or last month. So from the time I graduated in the 2014, I went on to work with several different wildlife agencies and consultant firms, and you'll hear a little bit about that as we progress through this presentation. But let me share a little bit about some of the pictures you have here. All right, so this first picture, you can see my mouse. It's me with a juvenile green. So we like to call these dinner plates because they're about the size of a dinner plate. So this, again, is a juvenile green. And then dropping down, this picture right here is a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. It's a male. You'll learn a little bit more about him and why he's so special later on in the presentation. And going to the right is a picture of me using one of the methods we use to catch bats in Borneo. We use a hand net. You can see it's really long because obviously bats fly. They're the only flying mammal. So we use that as one of our techniques to catch bats. And then going to the next picture, this is me with a wood duck. This is my favorite species. And we actually use a procedure called rocket netting where we bait the area where they're going to lay at, and we shoot a net over them, and we take them out and we put bands on them to look at the number of the population. And then the last picture is me in my graduate studies looking at the water quality and clarity of the experiment wetlands at our research project. The instrument I have here is a Suki, so it allows us to see the water clarity. There's a white and black checkered circle that shows the clarity as you release water out. It gets clear and where you can see it, so then you'll see how much water you release and say that's what the clarity is. All right, so my path to a wildlife biologist, obviously it had a lot of animal handling experience. So during college, I worked at a free-range organic cattle farm as a farm hand, where I got to help with a lot of the animals, the chickens, the turkeys, but also that's kind of where I got my first experience with education. I was able to talk to some of the students that came about the process on the farm, about the chickens and the turkeys and how we are able to keep them in the enclosure, and then also how we prevent snakes from getting eggs and different other things like that. From there, I graduated in 2014, and I got to work as a park ranger in Allegheny County, which is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and that's where I really fell in love with environmental education. So for us, it was a new program, and it was actually kind of a strange relationship when we first went into it. We were going to be ambassadors of the parks, but a lot of people were actually thinking that we were going to come in and take the police officer jobs that was in the park, and we would be writing tickets. That we had to tell them, like, yo, we're here just to get you to utilize this green space. So once they figured out we are here just to get them to utilize the green space and be an ambassador of the park, people actually started coming to our programs and enjoying the park where we were at. So these pictures here, this is me with this cow is June. She was one of the cattle that we had at one of the parks. And then dropping down is a picture of me with a queen snake. And this queen snake was my first experience with musking. So the snake musked on me. So snakes, they One of their defense mechanisms, some of them is to must, in which they release oil that comes out their cloaca, which is where their genitals, but also their digestive tract is. So it's a really foul smelling, and I had to go the rest of the day smelling like the musk of that snake. And it doesn't wash off easily, so you can wash hands, they still have that faint smell on it, on your hands. And then next is me leading a group of Boy Scouts, and I was talking about milkweed seed, which is the host plants for monarch butterflies. And then from working as a park ranger, I got to work at the Georgia Aquarium and Zoo Atlanta at the same time as an environmental educator and an animal handler. So this picture right here, this is one of my favorite animals that was at the zoo that I worked with. It's a lesser hedgehog tin rat. So it's not actually a hedgehog. The lesser lets us know that, but it's a mammal, and I really, really enjoy this because it actually did this thing where that's called anointing. So if you smell good, it will actually scratch your skin and steal your scent and rub it on itself to kind of go and impress the ladies that was in its enclosure. All
Alex,
right.
real quick, can you unshare and reshare your screen real quick? There's like a little gray box on it that I just want to fix real quick.
Okay. Let's see.
Sorry. Thank y'all for your patience really quickly. Sometimes Zoom does strange things. Thanks, Alex.
All right. Are we good now?
So that taskbar at the top, if you could move that over to the side, because I think it kind of blocks some of the view a little.
What about now?
If you move it down to the bottom, maybe.
Sorry. All right.
Oh no, you're fine.
Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So after I worked at the Georgia Aquarium and Zoo Atlanta, I got my first experience with the Federal Service. I went on to work in New Richmond, Wisconsin. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But here's a couple of pictures of me in different roles in the Federal Service. So I worked with the Fish and Wildlife Service as well as the National Park Service, and both of those in 4 different states. So some of these pictures here was sorry. Some of these pictures here, I got to work with many different animals, from butterflies to sea turtles. I got to experience my first time not only seeing like snow that's more than 2 inches, but also working in snow and walking over frozen ponds to check duck boxes. So with the Fish and Wildlife Service, that was my first official governmental job outside of college. My main goal there was working with the Conner blue butterfly. So it's this picture right here. They're a small butterfly about the size of a little bit bigger than your thumbnail. And our main goal was to reintroduce this species back into their historic range. So they used to be throughout the majority of the state of Wisconsin, and then through commercial farming and agriculture, they lost pretty much all of their habitat. And now they're what's known as extirpated, meaning they're no longer in their historic range. So they're kind of extinct from that historical range. They're not completely extinct, but they're extinct in their historic range. So that term is extirpated. So now they're in different hotspots throughout Wisconsin and some of their other historic states. So my job was to go up there and collect their eggs, collect the female eggs, and then some of the female butterflies as well, and rear them in greenhouses, and then release them on some of our WPAs, which are waterfowl production areas, and private lands. But to get to that point, it was months of cultivating and restoring the habitat through thinning the forest, growing and clearing and mowing prairie grasslands, and then they have a similar relationship with a host plant, like monarchs do with milkweed, but they use the wild lupin. So their host plant is the wild lupin. So we have to plant a whole bunch of wild lupin in order to help attract these guys and keep them there once we rear them in the greenhouse. But while we weren't working with the butterflies, we did, like I said, a lot of habitat restoration and then also monitoring of other species. And one of those species was Canada geese. So we utilize canoes and kayaks to round them up in these giant nets, and then we would take them out and put these bands on them. But before you put the band on, you have to know if they're a juvenile or an adult, and then also you got to understand what sex they are. So we would flip them over and look at their feathers and be able to tell if they're adult or not. And then also in order to sex them, like I mentioned back with the reptiles where they have a cloaca, well, birds also have a cloaca. So in order to identify them, we have to pop open their cloaca to see if they're male or female reproductive parts, because the geese, the feathers don't differentiate between the male or female. All right, so with my, that video just went. So with my most recent roles with the Fish and Wildlife Service, I'm still working with birds. So now I'm looking at the bird population as the forest that I'm working in has been thinned, and then as it is regrowing, what birds are moving in and what birds are moving out. So we are putting out giant nets called mist nets where the birds will fly into, and we'll take them out to identify what species they are, what age they are, and then also the sex. Then we also look at other features like how much fat they have on their bodies to understand if they're getting ready to migrate or not. And then I have also worked with wood ducks. So we monitor wood duck populations on the refuge I work at before hunting in order to understand the population. And then lastly, sometimes my job as a wildlife biologist, I have to do others' chores because there's a lack of personnel in some refuge, so I have to fill in. So sometimes I do a lot of biological work, but other times I do maintenance work, and then sometimes I also have to be a mechanic just because there's not a lot of individuals on the refuge due to funding and other things. So you have to be flexible to fill in when needed. And then this last video right here is me releasing one of the woodpeckers I had banded. So these birds right here, so this is a prothromatary warbler. This one is a wood duck, and this one is a downy woodpecker. All right, so with the National Park Service, my main goal while I was in Corpus Christi, Texas at Padre Island National Seashore was working with the Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, but we also work with other species of sea turtles as we found them. So this right here shows a different variety of tasks that we perform, and also like some of the job is really cool, but some of it is it's real stanky. No pun intended, because this right here is actually a sea turtle that had passed, it was dead, and we still work it up just like it's a live turtle to see what was the reason that it's died and to document any known reasons that it's died. So if it's anything like human cause, which is anthropogenic, we'll document it in the report in order to know like if it died of natural causes or if it died from human cause. We'll be able to say, okay, They die for human cause, and then once they do necropsy on it, which is on the which is an autopsy, but for animals we say necropsy, they'll be able to look for human cause on things like maybe it ingested fishing hooks, or maybe there was a fishing net that was around it, so it passed from that. So if that is the case, we'll be able to take those notes and necropsy to NOAA and say this turtle died from human caused activities. And then in some parts of the Gulf, certain fishing hooks are illegal, so you have to use a barbless hook in order so the turtle can be able to get off. So if it had a hook with a barb in it, some of the NOAA fisheries personnel may be able to track it back to a fisherman to see if they caused the death of it. And this right here is a hatchling of a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. And this is full-grown adult females that's laying a nest. So my main job was to search and protect the nesting sea turtles. Texas is a weird state where the beach is actually considered a roadway in the Constitution. So we are out there patrolling not only for the sake of the turtles, but also to protect them from people who are driving on the beach. So one way in order to protect the actual nest, since these guys are endangered, we actually will collect the nest and let them hatch in a incubation room, and then we'll come back and release them on the sand and the beach. So what's it like to be a sea turtle biologist? So our job is driving on the beach, looking for these turtles. How do you see a sea turtle? How do you know what to look for? Well, if you look at this picture right here, the turtles actually leave tracks when they're coming out of the water and going back. So this is one of the first steps we are looking for while we're driving on the beach looking for the turtles, are these tracks. Once we see the tracks, we'll start looking for a turtle, and then we can notice if it's nesting or not. Sometimes the tracks are blown away from the wind, so then that's when we have to be extra vigilant to looking for the turtles. So maybe it's like some of the turtles came out and there's some tracks, but then the rest of it is gone. So like we know that there's no outbound tracks where it's going back into the water. Excuse me, sorry. There's no outbound tracks where it's going back into the water. So we have to look at the dunes where the turtles nest to actually look for the turtle. So this picture right here, let me move this, is actually one of our nesting sea turtles. So once they come up, they emerge from the ocean, they go up and they go and start digging. And then once they get done digging, they go into a trance where they are laying their eggs. And that is when we can actually go up and start doing our biological work. So we're taking measurements of them, we're taking genetic samples, and then we're pinning a stringer in the nest. So someone can come behind us and collect the eggs and take them to the incubation room. And this is what a nesting sea turtle looks like. So she has already laid her eggs. She's covering up the nest now. And once she gets done covering the nest, she'll go back into the water. And a quick little story, the first time I ever worked with sea turtles, it was like my fourth day on the job, and I was riding with the patrol, one of our volunteers, and I saw a rock that was coming out of the ocean. And I saw the rock, and I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, that's a big rock. And then I kept looking at it, and I was like, oh, that rock is moving. And then finally it clicked that was an emergent sea turtle. So I was like patting my volunteer on the back. I was like, yo, 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 that's a sea turtle, that's a sea turtle. And then he just looked at me, he was like, I know. But that was my first experience seeing an emergent sea turtle. See it emerge, nest, and return back to the water and work it up. So that was a pretty cool experience that I was thankful that I got to see. All right, so once the sea turtles lay and they hatch, we release them in the sand, and then since we are a governmental agency, we also have public releases where the public can come and see the sea turtles make their way back to the ocean. All right. So sometimes like your job is really fun, and other times you gotta just do paperwork. So down here is me writing down data as someone else is placing some of the sea turtle eggs into a modified nest. So some of the turtles that we get are in a remote area down island. So instead of taking them all the way back to the headquarters in the incubation room, we actually put them in like a natural, actually a giant tennis court that has the sand in it. So we modify and dig these holes so they replicate the holes that the sea turtle would hatch from, and place the eggs in there and monitor them, and then release. In addition to monitoring the hatchlings and also looking for nests, we do a lot of stranded and injured turtle response. So some they are stranded due to like being chased by a predator. Sometimes they're caught in nets. At other times, like this one right here, this one is the turtle that I said was special. This is Tyson. He was found with a net and an anchor on him by a fisherman. So it was like 100 yards of net and around a 10 meter. So they cut the rotor off of him, and we responded and took him to a rehab center. And then eventually he actually had a satellite tracker placed on him, and he was released. Well, male sea turtles, which Tyson is, are special because there's not a lot of information of what they do in the years, because they don't come back up for sure like females, so you can't really study them. So he had a tracker on them in order to let us know like where he's going and swimming and eating and foraging. So he had that satellite tracker on him. So that was a cool experience to pick him up and then have someone place a tracker on him and look at the location of where he was going. All right, so my last role working with sea turtles and as a wildlife biologist actually took me off the sea. So I was on a dredging ship, which is a ship that goes out and deepening and widening shipping channels, or after hurricanes and storms, they will dig up sand, throw it back on the beach, which is the process called beach renourishment. So my job was to check and monitor the drag head, which is this right here. It has these chains on them, which are also known as TEDs, turtle exclusion device. Turtles are supposed to bounce off of these chains while they're digging. And then my job is to make sure that there's no turtles dug up and is in these collection boxes or the hopper. Sometimes we have storms that come in, and other times we have cool experiences like these where we get to see dolphins that we'll play with on the boat. So there's a couple of dolphins up here. So my main focus when I'm in the Gulf is looking out for sea turtles, but if I'm on the Atlantic coast, I will be looking for endangered marine mammals like the right whale. So it just depends on what location I'm at, what my task is. And lastly, now I'm doing some private contracting and volunteer work. So when I was in Borneo, that was a semi-private contracting work. And like I said, we was in Crocker Range National Park, looking at the diversity and abundance of different species of bats that was in the area. So this right here is a trefoil horseshoe bat. And it gets the name from the nose. It kind of looks like a horseshoe down here. So this is an insectivore. You can kind of tell by the smaller eyes and the nose, whereas the first bat that I showed you was a fruit bat with the bigger eyes. So I do private contracting work, and then I volunteer with kids. Growing up, I didn't have a representation of what Black or even a person of color scientists look like. So I try to be that representation for the younger generation that I come across. And then here's another picture of me working with a bat. So this one I'm using a caliper to look at the forearm length of the bat. And here's me releasing one of the tailless fruit bats in Borneo. And some quick advice that I have for anybody is take your time. Nature doesn't hurry, yet everything is a compass. It's one of my favorite quotes by Wu Tao's. And then be 100% you. Like I knew from an early stage that I wanted to work with animals and be outdoors. And then thankfully I am able to do that, but I'm also able to be myself, be the quirky self, be someone who's like fascinated by animals, and also just be 100% like my Black self, not being able to hide who I am. And there's going to be people like, oh, there's no money in that, or oh, oh, like animals will bite you, or why don't you want to be a doctor? You're so smart. But follow your passion. You would rather be in something that you really, really love than something that you don't really like just because the money is there, or just because someone says that you will be good at it. But you know your passion. And then with this job, you got to be flexible. So go with the flow, like the ocean waves. There's going to be many challenges that come along the way, but you have to be flexible and be able to reassess the situation and continue on. And then, well, actually, ships are not made to stay in the harbor. Bedford, you got to get out your comfort zone. My job has taken me outside my comfort zone so many times. Like growing up, I didn't really talk much, but now in the right situation, I talk up the storm. A lot of my jobs have taken me away from home. Borneo is on the other side of the world. My first job in Pennsylvania is like, what, 11 or 14 hours away from Atlanta, Wisconsin, 17 hours. So a lot of those jobs taking me away from home in areas that I wasn't really comfortable with. In Wisconsin, I was the only Black person in my office. So you gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable and get out your comfort zone. All right, you guys have any questions?
All right, Alex, thank you so much. I truly, when I say I was screaming, I was over here screaming at the pictures and videos that you shared. That was so wonderful. Thank you for getting us such a behind the scenes look at your incredible experience as a wildlife biologist. Y'all I tell you, Alex has stories for days. Just listening to him talk about them is so incredible. So thank you. That was wonderful. And we do have several questions from the folks who are listening in. So I want to go ahead and make sure that we get to as many as possible in the about 15 minutes that we have left today. So firstly, we have someone who had a question about the sea turtles. So let me move this out of the way so I can see. How long does it take for hatchlings to hatch?
About, I believe 45 to 60 days.
Okay, cool. That was the easy question. Cool.
Yeah.
Oya asked, as far as your education, what kind of classes or courses other than your required major classes in your major at Georgia Southern helped you prepare for your current position?
So yeah, I took a lot of wildlife classes. I took wildlife management. I took vertebrate and zoology, animal behavior class, mammalogy, ornithology, which actually got me back into the biology, like I guess the field biology role. Like I actually switched my major from being a vet to middle grade education, and I took ornithology as a biology minor, and that was my first field class. And I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna make this work." Like being outside, looking at wildlife, especially birds. Like I'm going back, so I switched my major back to biology after taking that class.
That's awesome. Actually, Daniel asked what inspired your affinity for birds and working in the environment. So I think you touched on that as well. Thank you so much. We have Juliana here who actually has her second grade class watching. And there were several questions, one of which I wanted to focus on. Do you always work with a team of other biologists?
Actually, no. Sometimes you're by yourself. Like where I'm at now, I work with my supervisor a good bit, but there's only 2 biologists in on the refuge, and we manage 80,000 acres. So many times we are split up accomplishing different tasks. So a lot of times I am out preparing the duck pad, which is where we trap our ducks to band them, or I'm mowing one of the waterfall impoundments, or I'm running equipment to another part of the refuge. So you're not always with a team. I would say, honestly, most of the jobs I had, I was by myself a good bit of the time. And Wisconsin was the same way, just because there's so many acres you have to manage. But other jobs that I have worked with somebody, have been some of the best experiences, especially ones that are made up of people of different backgrounds. Like in Borneo, there was people from Malaysia, people from Europe, Americans that were all, there's women there that is also Hispanic, and white people and Black people, and it was a melting pot. So that was pretty cool. And then we're all different ages as well. So like working in a team is good. But a lot of times you work by yourself, depending on the position.
Great answer. Thank you so much for that. Leah asked, of all the different projects you've been a part of, which left the biggest impact on you, if you could choose?
That's hard. I mean, obviously, like starting off, I would say, that touched my heart where most was like that sea turtle. Like the first time seeing a sea turtle, I think I've almost shed a tear. But yeah, it was just so cool, like seeing that, because like honestly, I never thought like I would work with sea turtles. Like one, like at the time, like I wasn't thinking. I was like, well, sea turtles, they live in the ocean. I'm not gonna go get on a boat and go off at sea, which now I have. But so I was like, yeah, I'm not going in the middle of the ocean. So I never thought process at first, like, duh, like females, they come up and nest. so that was pretty cool. So that, and then like um being in Borneo, like not only working with bats, but just the people and the culture, like they're so genuine and nice. So that kind of I guess the most impact of just meeting those people, and being able to work with them and see their culture and experience it. Then also some of the wildlife over there, like I got to see a orangutan, like literally arms length in front of me, and then I got to see sun bears. Those are my favorite bears, and it was so cool. But yeah, so uh, that was definitely my best experience. And saw.
Oh, you broke up a little bit. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, got you, got
Yeah,
you. Okay.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, no, we got you. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. We have a couple questions that came up in the chat. The first one that I want to touch on is Elise said, "Hi, Alex. Awesome presentation. You are amazing. How can we help to instill a conservation mindset in youth, no matter what career they choose to pursue?" And one of the things that we do want to touch on in this series is that even if you're not like a wildlife biologist by trade, there are ways to kind of be invested in the conservation of wildlife and conservation in general, whether professionally or as just an everyday person who's outside of the career field who wants to kind of help the efforts. I want this to be a two-part question to touch on a question that Leah also had. So one, how can we help instill a conservation mindset in youth, no matter what career they choose? And then two, kind of what can the average person do, even if they're outside of that career field, to kind of help contribute to conservation?
Yeah, I mean, I guess start small. Like it's easy to talk about recycling, and using less plastic. So just start small by teaching recycling. Then also like maybe some of your pastimes are not very conservation friendly. So maybe like growing up, you used to go to the pond and feed ducks bread. Well, we now know that bread doesn't have any nutritional value ducks. So instead of feeding them bread, so talk about other ways like feed them like vegetable, fruit, apples without the seeds in them, and teach them those ways. Like, you know what? Like sometimes traditions are made to be broken. So instead of doing that bread, going and feeding them fresh veggies, and also just instilling them like that. Birds, every animal is special in its own way. A big one a lot of people are not gonna like is not killing snakes. Show them that their snakes are cool. They're good. Like you don't have to be afraid of snakes. If you don't like snakes, don't look at them. Like most of the time, snakes will go away on their own. Like if you are if you are close enough to kill and you're close that you're putting yourself in danger. So like most snakes, even if you just spray them with a water hose, they're gonna go away. Snakes don't like shock or harassment. So by you scaring them, it's better that they go away than you killing. You can actually make more room for other snakes to come. And then in Georgia, actually, it's actually illegal to kill non-venomous snakes. A lot of people don't know that. It's not enforced. But yeah, and then lastly, just be a good steward. Teach them about I'm not taking more than what they're gonna eat or use, or even if you're gonna be engaging in fishing or hunting, teach them about using as much as that animal that you harvest as possible. Maybe not just taking the breast meat from a duck or goose and throwing it aside, or not hunting for the biggest rack on deers, but actually taking as much of that meat as possible that you're able to use. And that's a big thing. Like we have to start conservation minded from a young age. What you learn in your earlier life will transfer into adulthood. It's easier to learn young than to try to break a mold once you're an adult.
That's incredible, Alex. Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here taking notes myself. So I really appreciate you sharing that insight. And really, there's so many ways that we're entrenched in our traditions and typical ways of thinking from wherever we grew up, whoever we grew up around, that maybe we need to rethink some of that. So that's excellent. Molly is a senior studying ecology and monitoring, or no, excuse me, minoring in wildlife management. She's in college, graduating this semester. Congratulations. She wants to do a gap year before going back for a master's and wants to do field jobs in the meantime. Do you have advice for getting field work / federal jobs?
Yes, I definitely encourage you in that gap year. I took a 7-year gap, but yeah, honestly, like go ahead and start like applying now. Apply for jobs even if you don't think you're qualified for. I applied to the sea turtle job. I didn't think I was qualified for. I never worked with sea turtles before, besides like interviewing about them behind an aquarium. But I got the job, and I think that is because like I applied. I didn't think I was qualified. But what I did know was that my job before, working in Wisconsin, doing all the field work, I got transferable skills that will help me to get that job. So you want to go ahead and try to make sure you have those skills that are transferable. If you can, go ahead and start getting wildlife and just animal handling experience that can be transferred to that. Sometimes you got to take a job that may not be the best job that you want, but is enough to get that experience. Also volunteering. You don't want to be over volunteered or abused while volunteering, but some volunteering is good. Like when I got done working in Wisconsin with ducks, I love banding. I wanted to know more like what other banding out there. So I pretty much Googled duck banding, bird banding, and I came across a bird banding station here in Georgia and volunteered. I've got some bird banding experience, and now look at me. I have done multiple different jobs. So try to get volunteer experience that is going to be able to transfer to the jobs you want. And then check the job boards. Every day you can check them, but really like at least twice a week, check those job boards, and don't use the same job board. Like there's tons of job boards out there. So you want to like spread your resume out as far as possible, and don't give up. Sometimes jobs, with the federal service, sometimes it takes 3-4 months to hear back. So if you don't hear back, it's not like it's not the end of the world. Sometimes it's just a delay in them. But you can also follow up with other jobs as well. But you definitely want to try to get as much, like while you're applying to these jobs, make sure you have as much experience as possible. Is it volunteer? Even some of your coursework can count as experience. So yeah, like go into it with an open mind, and then, like I said, you got to get uncomfortable. So maybe the only job that's available is in, I don't know, Tallulah, Louisiana, middle of nowhere, and you're going to be the only person that looks like you're working on a refuge. You're the youngest person, so you might have to do that, especially if that means getting some experience, so later on you can get a different job, or even transfer into a career.
Yeah, that's incredible. Man, Alex is a wealth of knowledge. Like we could literally sit here for hours and he would share so much incredible advice. Alex, thank you for that answer. I put in the chat an example of one of the common or one of the popular job boards, the Texas A&M University job board that has a lot of wildlife careers on it. I also want to share in the chat right now on Georgia Audubon's website, especially for youth, we have career resources where that are available to youth in Georgia and especially in Atlanta. If you want to get experience, whether it's volunteering or get some paid experience or get some opportunities to learn more about careers, to get some hands-on exposure to career options. So please feel free to check out this page on our website to learn more and share it with young people who you know in the Atlanta and Georgia area. And we are now at time. Alex, we cannot thank you enough for sharing your incredible experiences with us. And y'all, let me tell you that this is just a small chapter in the incredible story of what Alex's career has been so far. So I definitely encourage you to follow Alex on Instagram and Twitter. And let me go ahead and one more time copy and paste his Instagram and Twitter handle into the chat so you can follow him and continue to learn more about his story and the incredible experiences and information that he has to offer. Alex, we're so grateful. Thank you all so much for attending, and we'll see you at the next program. We've got another one this week and then the next two that are happening in February. So definitely stay tuned and sign up for the upcoming events in our Conservation Career Series. And we hope that you have a wonderful day. Alex, people are saying thank you, amazing
You're
job.
welcome.
They learned
Thanks for
so
having
much.
me.
Of course. All right, everybody, have a great day. All right, Elise, I see your note here about conservationist grants. Thank you so much. I'll be sure to open this now so I don't lose that and share it. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you all.